and I'll unlock the waiting room, guys, so we'll let people in. Enable waiting room and admit all. Welcome.
Hi everyone, welcome.
Hi everybody. Moish, you want to do formalities?
8 o'clock, I'm just sharing it. We're just gonna all share it and put it on quiet. Amazing. Okay, welcome. This is wonderful to see you all here. To all of those joining us both on social media and here on the Zoom platform, it's really wonderful to have you at another extraordinary YGP event. We are excited, we are fired up. And tonight we're all disruptors. We're all just, you know what, disrupting our evening to come and join us to be united as one. And that is a real disruptor because we could just be sitting by ourselves down, but rather we're united as one. And I just want to welcome you all to another incredible YGP event on behalf of my beautiful dear wife, Dina, my better half, wonderful partner in crime, Yossi Wolf, and his dear wife, Ricky, and Brian, all of us at YGP. It's really wonderful to have you. YGP is kicking goals. We are here for you every day of the week, 7 days, 24 hours. And please find us, get engaged, get involved, get inspired, because that's what we're here to do for you. Today is just one of our many events. And next week, we're back on with another event. Follow us on Facebook, because you name it, we've got you covered. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Brian, who does such an incredible work. And thank you, Brian, for all your work with YGP, who is going to be introducing Rebecca, who's going to be introducing our panel. Look at that. We've got a lot. And then Yossi tonight is going to be concluding. So we've got like a lot happening just for you guys. So sit back, get a tea, get a coffee, put your feet up, relax. That's the beautiful thing here. You could be snug in bed, you could be on the couch, and it's not even rude. So look at that. Relax, and Brian, take it away.
Thanks, Moishi. And thank you to all our presenters who I'm looking forward to everybody hearing from tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing from tonight as well. And most importantly, thank you to everyone tuning in. We're slowly, the numbers going up as we kind of slowly get to the formalities of the evening. We're looking forward to once again hosting everyone, unfortunately online. We'd love to see you in person, but like Moishi said, it's fortunate we're online because you can be in the comfort of literally wherever you are at home in your pajamas or on your couch or kitchen. Taking us straight forward to the formalities or leading up to them, I want to introduce Rebecca Davis, who's moderating tonight. Beck's no stranger to YJP. She's hosted events with us before and helped us with events in the past, but more formally before, and when she's not helping us with YJP events and moderating, Beck was the features editor for the lead up to now until just recently at the Australian Jewish News, where she reported extensively on gender inequality and anti-Semitism, amongst many other kind of very relevant and important topics. A few months ago, she's taken a leap into doing her own thing and kind of disrupting a new space and trying something different. In the spirit of YJP, she's gone out on her own and she started a podcast called The Good Edit. So we're excited to be able to promote her for her new independent venture tonight and welcome her back as now her own boss. Beck's podcast gives a voice to the stories of Jewish women in our community. She just launched it last month. If you haven't already spotted it somewhere on social media, it's definitely worth Googling and finding. Beck happens to have also hosted SHEREE RUBINSTEIN, one of our other presenters tonight, in one of her podcasts. So you can get double the story on SHEREE. If you like her story tonight or you want to find out more about SHEREE, find it on The Good Edit. Yeah, so with no further ado, I'm sure you'll find out more about everybody in the event throughout the course of tonight. Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. What a beautiful welcome. It's great to be with everyone tonight, wherever you are in your living rooms or anywhere. Before I get started, I just want to do a quick welcome to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which I and many others tuning in from the Caulfield area at least are joining you from tonight, the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We respect their elders past, present and emerging. So we've got a lot to get through and I'm really excited to start firing some questions to our guests tonight, no pressure. But to begin with, I'll just give a quick overview of who we have here. So starting off with Rebecca Burrows, if you want to give a little wave. Hi, Beck. So Rebecca is the Managing Director of DoorDash in Australia, having joined nearly a year ago. In this role, she leads an amazing team and is transforming the delivery experience of Australian customers. Prior to joining DoorDash, Rebecca was at Australia Post, where she held a number of roles across commercial, sales, marketing, and operations. So just a few things. Rebecca is known for her focus on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. She also sits on a number of boards in and outside the Jewish community and is mum to 2 boys. Moving on, we've got SRULI Ross. Give a wave, SRULI. Yeah. So SRULI is the co-founder and co-CEO, Executive Director of BUTN Limited, Australia and New Zealand's leading suite of fintech funding products. SRULI has created, developed and executed technology and digital products through several startups. SRULI co-founded Sikot.com, one of the leading online automotive platforms and largest online automotive forum in the Philippines. As a qualified accountant, SRULI has worked in private practice, not-for-profit sector and the Big 4 firms. So a bit of a diverse background there, which I'm excited to hear more from. And last but no means least, SHEREE Rubinstein. So SHEREE is a former corporate lawyer turned social entrepreneur and the founder of One Roof, a leading digital membership for female leaders and entrepreneurs. In 1 year, One Roof has onboarded nearly 1,000 members worldwide, Australian-wide, and is experienced in building businesses, raising capital, mentoring women along their business journey. SHEREE is an AFR 100 Women of Influence, a Telstra Business Women's Award finalist, and on the board of the Victorian Women's Trust. So we're joined by 3 underachievers, clearly. But to get things started, I think it's fair to say with those introductions, we want to hear a little bit more about what the journey's entailed for our 3 guests tonight. So I'm going to start with SRULI. Clearly, there's a few different things you've been involved with there, starting from accounting. Can you share a little bit about your journey from that space into where you are now?
Well, and again, very humbled to be on such a panel with such standouts. So I do humbly accept. It's definitely been a varied journey. I think how we got to sort of circa 2 months ago when, you know, myself, my co-founder, Walter Rappaport, listed our fintech BUTN. And I think, you know, if we take it in a nutshell, over the past 20 years, started off in accounting, a very monotonous, dry industry. And I guess I moved towards the business sphere. And I think I'll frame sort of my panel position tonight by saying that I'm a very big believer in having a position in a grounding. And my grounding was accounting, numbers, financial statements, etc. And from that basis, I've really, I guess, built over the last 20 years. So I think it's important to sort of start with that base. And that's really how I started my journey, moving from accounting, moving into private practice, then moving into business, then founding Australian Factoring Company, and then ultimately creating BUTN Limited off the back of that, which went on to list 2 months ago on the ASX.
Amazing. So was that just something moving from position to position and navigating your way through those fields? Was that something that just kind of happened organically for you? I'm assuming it wasn't part of the grand plan to begin with.
No, look, I think if we look at, I guess, the next level down, personally, when I started accounting, there was always another tax return. There was always another, you know, P&L. There was always another, that's a profit and loss statement, or there was always another balance sheet to look at. And again, you know, people on the call that are in business would understand what I'm saying. And there was never a sense of achievement, because every time you finished a tax return, there was always another one, and there was always another one. So I think personally, I needed that sense of achievement of something, building something, and then seeing it flourish. And I think, you know, my first business I started at 21 was not-for-profit consulting. I didn't even think it existed back then in the early 2000s. And we had clients like AIDS, Comic Relief, Heart Foundation, Leukemia Foundation, etc. And how we actually started was that in the early 2000s, Lance Armstrong came out with these silicon wristbands. And this is a story not many people know, but Lance Armstrong came out with these silicon wristbands in the early 2000s, and they were called the Live Strong bands. And they were these tiny silicon wristbands that everyone was buying for $1. And I just happened to be in America at that point in time. And I was traveling through America, and he sold 1 million of these bands for $1 each in a week. And I thought, this guy's just cleaned up $1 million off this silicon wristband. And wherever you walked in the street, you saw everyone carrying these wristbands. I thought, this is genius. I mean, this is the next big thing. So fast forward, I was back in Australia within 2 months. I sourced the products in China. I brought the products to Australia. Within the first 3 years, any silicon wristband that came through Australia went through me. You know, we brought it in for 20 cents. You know, we sold it for $1 to the charities. The charities sold it for $5. And then suddenly this thing exploded. And then, you know, everyone wanted a piece of the silicon wristband, and then everyone wanted a piece of the consulting, and everyone said, oh, you're doing all these wonderful projects for these charities. How can we sort of get on board? And that's really when I got the flavor of, oh, this is actually starting something, building something from nothing, flourishing and enjoying the fruits of my labor. And I think, again, that was like sort of when I was 22, 23. And that's really how I started my journey to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I'll jump just to SHEREE now, because obviously you've also come from a corporate background and then found your way into the startup world. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about how you came to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started my career in corporate law. I had no intention or desire to build a business, although in hindsight, it's actually pretty obvious to me that it was probably in my blood. My parents ran their own business and ended up running the business from our home so that, you know, they could both keep working full time while raising 3 children. So we always joke, I literally grew up in a business anyway. So it was always there. But I guess, yeah, I was working in corporate law. I think I felt a bit like a fish out of water, and I felt that it wasn't my calling. And so, you know, I remember there was a day where I had a fellow grad who was a good friend of mine, and she asked me if I identified as a feminist, and I had no idea whether I was or how to answer that question. And so she sent me home with all this research and books and, you know, all these things to kind of look at. And after doing all this research, it really cemented my thinking and put vocabulary around what I'd been feeling. And it just became this passion for me, something that, you know, I really wanted to remove the barriers that existed for women in business and leadership. And so that was kind of what I started looking for. And I started running networking events for women that then led into this concept called One Roof. And at the time, the idea was to create a physical hub, providing everything women need in business under one roof. And so I ended up testing this concept by renting a 2-story Airbnb mansion and converted this woman's house in St Kilda into a pop-up co-working space for a week. And completely unbeknownst to her, over 500 people came into her home in that week, and it was hugely successful. And so I think, yeah, it was kind of one foot in front of the other, realizing this something I was very passionate about. And then as I was testing it, it became very clear to me that there was something in this. And so that gave me the courage to, you know, tell my parents I'm leaving a stable, financially secure corporate job to pursue my dreams to build a business and support women.
Amazing. And we'll come back a little bit later. I want to find out how COVID has impacted all of you and your respective businesses. I know, SHEREE, it's obviously had an enormous impact where you've changed your entire model. But before we do that, Rebecca, I want to hear about your journey to where you are now.
Yeah, so I guess different in many ways, and definitely different on paper, but probably some similarities. So I began my career in advertising. And I'd sort of always wanted to work in advertising kind of until I did. I worked in advertising when I was at uni. And I kind of worked and studied at the same time. And I sort of got to the end of my degree and realized that as much as I really loved it, I knew that wasn't a long-term career for me. It was probably going to be a bit limiting and probably only using like a certain part of my skill set. And I loved the creativity of it, but I didn't really love the client management and didn't see myself in that career long term. So I changed and I went and I joined Shell, and I spent about 9 years there doing lots of different things, predominantly living overseas, and I was in kind of global roles most of my time. And then basically through like decisions of, I guess, kind of that junction of different life decisions and career decisions all in one. Around about when I had my first son, I decided that I needed to be much more grounded in Australia and not take on global roles. And so I looked for a company that had those opportunities for growth within Australia. And I knew it needed to be an Australian company based in Melbourne, which led me to Australia Post, somewhere that I never, ever was like, it definitely was not on my radar. Where I spent the last 9 years doing really building out the e-commerce deliveries business. And then last year I decided to do something totally different, and I joined DoorDash as a company. Then we had here about 25 employees and have spent the last year working with an amazing team, growing that business really substantially. We're now at about 150 employees and growing month on month. It's a really exciting time. But if I kind of think about like why I say there are some similarities, I guess for me, like as I've sought different opportunities, like I think in that time I've probably had 20 at least jobs. It's always been about like curiosity and like challenging myself. And I think that you can do that in a big corporate environment. Like I've grown up in big corporate environments, and I actually loved those environments. Or you can do it in a scaling business or a startup, or you can do it on your own. And it's probably just about having that. For me, it was about like curiosity and seeking out challenge. People who are trying to navigate in large corporates who I might mentor will always say to me, well, how did you get that opportunity? Because I have done extremely diverse and divergent things in my career, going from, I don't know, running like a marketing department to then suddenly running the postie fleet, and the operations of Australia Post are like so substantially different. And literally I went from one of those jobs to the other. And for me, it's been about, I'm a very curious person. And so looking for like another new problem to solve and where I'm going to learn in a new role. And so, that's probably how I guess my path would be. I would sort of say it's definitely not been linear. I've never been somebody with a plan. It's been about like asking questions and finding the way I can solve those questions in a way that I'm going to learn. And that's probably the main theme that's led me to where I am now.
Yeah. Given that you've come from that corporate background from Shell and then Australia Post, I'm interested to know how you found that transition going into the startup space.
Yeah. So honestly, like not as dramatically different as I was expecting. Like I was, and I guess I'm kind of fortunate in one way that the kind of subject matter, I guess, that I'm dealing with is honestly just like a mushing together of lots of stuff that I've done before. So I'm pretty comfortable in the content of what I would need to do. So in terms of like building the actual strategy for the business, that bit wasn't the bit that scared me, and therefore wasn't the bit that actually attracted me to the opportunity. It might have been what helped me to get the opportunity. For me, it was more around, well, how am I going to operate in this like very different culture in terms of pace, in terms of the type of team, in terms of the type of environment, the risk profile of the business. And for me personally, like that was what was exciting. Like, it's like, this is what I'm going to learn by taking this opportunity, is actually how to operate in a very, very different way. It's not as different as I feared / hoped. But I think what's actually not as different is it's not as different to me and who I am. So in all honesty, like operating in those large corporates through my career, I guess I was probably a bit of a different thinker. I was probably on like one extreme of the way you could operate and be successful in those businesses. And I kind of relished that, if I'm honest. Like I enjoyed being like maybe more approachable, a bit more of a risk taker, not at all hierarchical. Like I don't care one bit about anybody's like title or how long they've been in a role. And I actually probably enjoyed having that role in those organizations. And then I've come into this organization and I'm probably like in the middle, right? If you would like put those characteristics on a spectrum. But I actually said to someone, I just feel actually like free. I can just be exactly who I am. I'm not expected to play a certain role. I'm not expected to be a certain way. And I'm able, it's actually been a really big confidence boost for me personally, because it's like, wow, I can apply all of this like knowledge that I have and these skills that I have, and I don't need to like wrap them in the other things that an organization would expect, because it is smaller and we're growing it as we go. And it's been very freeing. So it definitely, going in, I was like, oh, you know, am I going to just be like a fish out of water, or are they going to think of me as this like stale person who's come from corporate, and I'm not going to be like, you know, I don't know, innovative enough or young enough or cool enough or whatever. And actually it's like, oh wow, I just like totally fit here and I really enjoy it, and I've got a great, you know, a great environment to operate in.
Yeah. Just jumping over to SHEREE and SRULI, it sounds like with both of your stories, one similar thing is that you found there was like an emotional connection to you understanding that it was your time to leave the corporate space that you had both been in. For SRULI, it was more like having the gratification of really feeling like you're accomplishing something from beginning to end. And SHEREE, it was more, it seems like more of an idealistic kind of values that really kicked in, that you saw an opportunity to affect change. So I'm wondering, your experience in going through that, how did you actually know it was time for you to go out on your own and to back yourself to do it?
I was completely naive. I mean, I had no idea what I was jumping into, what I was leaving. I had no idea. It was just, it was like, kind of Rebecca was talking about this. You kind of, things start to flow and it feels different and right. And so I was out there testing this concept of one roof. I was networking and meeting people. I was going to things like I participated in Australia's first all-female hackathon, which at the time I had absolutely no idea what it meant. I was a lawyer. Like I walked in there and they were talking coding languages. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And we had 24 hours. We were at Inspire 9, the co-working space in Richmond, and we had 24 hours to pitch a business idea and build wireframes for it. And, I just threw myself completely in the deep end. I love learning. I love meeting people. And so, yeah, and every time I went to a different networking event or conference like Nexus, which is for social entrepreneurs and impact investors, and these people that I kept meeting along the way, it just kept opening doors for me. So, yeah, I'm very big on building and nurturing and a strong network and relationships, because that's opened every single door for me. But I guess also it depends on your risk appetite and your financial situation. And so I could balance kind of diving in the deep end with having a part-time job at Fitted for Work, which is a not-for-profit that supports women who experience disadvantage to get work. And so it was stepping stones. But an incredible amount of naivety, and definitely quite, ideological in my pursuit.
SRULI, how about you?
Yeah, look, I had a slightly different experience, actually. I had a bit of a nudge, or I should say a push, from a company where I was working. And I'll give a great shout out to a gentleman named Philip Brass. And I don't know if some of you on here might or might not know him, but he's a He's a gentleman, ex-CEO of Pacific Dunlop, for many, many years, ran a women's shoe company, believe it or not. And I was hired by him and his cousin to run this, the finance department of this women's shoe company. And don't get me wrong, great perks, unlimited women's shoes, all the women's shoes I could ask for. Suffice to say, didn't really help me. But he came to me one Friday afternoon and he said to me, "You're not an accountant." I said, no, I am. Look, here's my CPA certificate. And, you know, I've been in accounting for 5 years. He's like, "You're not an accountant. You should either be running this company or running your own company." And I thought, oh, that's interesting. You know, I've been there, 6 months and I was getting a bit worried. I thought, oh, he's going to fire me. And he said, and again, this is why I do a massive shout out to Phil. And he said to me, "I'm going to send you away to see one of these job specialists, and they're going to go through psychometric testing and all this sort of stuff." And I found out later it was like tens of thousands of dollars for this course. And he sent me away, and I did this course, and this guy trained Olympic athletes and you name it, like high level. And he said to me, "You're going to go to do this course, and I'm going to pay for it. And you're going to come back and we're going to get the results and then we're going to discuss them." I said, "Great." I went away and I did this course with this gentleman. I came back and he said to me, "I got the results." And I said, "Oh, here we go." I was getting ready to walk out the door, and he said, "The choice is yours." He said, "But it's exactly what I thought. You should either be running this business or running your own business, but the choice is yours. If you want to stay, I'll keep you. But if you want to go and run your business, I'll back you." And I said, "All right, let me think about it over the weekend." I came back on Monday morning and I said, "Thank you very much, Phil, but I quit. I resigned." And that for me was the catalyst. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have met my co-founder, Walter, by the bins, believe it or not, in our office. Again, everything's, I'm a big believer that everything's from above. And I was literally taking out the rubbish on a I think it was a Monday morning, and he was taking out his rubbish as well. I think pickup was Tuesdays in those days. And I said, "Oh, what do you do?" He said, "I've just moved into the office." And I said, "Oh, so have I." I said, "What do you do?" He's like, "I do factoring." I said, "Oh, great. I understand what that is. I did that at the women's shoe company on the other side of the table." And I said, "We should have a coffee." And 6 months later, he knocked on my door and he said, "Let's have that coffee now." And literally the rest is history. So that's how I ended up where we are today.
So did Philip kind of become an accidental mentor?
Funnily enough, a month before my IPO, I reached out to him. I hadn't spoken to him literally in probably 5 or 6 years, and I called him up. I managed to track down his mobile, and I called him up, and he said, "Oh, I haven't heard from you in 6 years. What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I just wanted to tell you I'm listing my company in a month, on the ASX, and we've got this, this great valuation, and I've got this great staff and this tech, etc." And I said, "I just want to thank you, because the only reason that I'm here today and the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because sort of 7, 8 years ago, you sort of led me down this path of no, I guess after that stage was really no, I couldn't turn back sort of thing." And he said, "Oh, it's not needed, it's not necessary." But, to this day, like that really was a defining moment for me. And that's why I am where I am today.
Amazing. We've heard obviously about the trajectories and the rising of all of you in a career sense. In terms of, you often hear about the entrepreneurial mindset and how challenges are reframed and leveraged into opportunity. I'm interested, are there any challenges that come to mind that either any of you can share where you've really had your back up against the wall, but you found a way to leverage and turn it into something wonderful for your business? Rebecca, I'll start with you. If you need time to think, like, oh, do we just skip?
No. I can kind of think of a few. I mean, I think that a lot of success comes from challenges that you face. And so, I kind of try and look at things and think, well, how is this, like, if, I don't know, let's just say you've tried something and it's not working and you've got a challenge, from that. How do I now reuse this work or reposition it a different way? So I'll give you an example that's like quite kind of practical. So, a few years ago, when I was at Post. It was right when you didn't used to be able to kind of like ship things out of a physical store, like only kind of done out of warehouses. And I convinced everybody that we should do this trial where we kind of set up like pop-ups in the shopping center car parks where people could then ship things straight from there to wherever they wanted to, like leading into the kind of Christmas period. And in other kind of more fast-paced businesses, like doing something like this wouldn't be like particularly innovative, but at a company like Post, like you can't kind of do anything that's not like immediately scalable, because Australia Post needs to be like consistent across the whole country, or have certain things, and then there's like unions and all sorts of things to do with. So the risk that I had to take was to go, okay, we're going to do this, and that meant I had to use like about 50 vans around the country, fit them out as though they were like little post offices, work with all these shopping centres to get them into the vans, into the car parks and do them. And anyway, it didn't work. But we'd sort of committed to all of this, including like getting the staffing and all of this stuff. And I felt really concerned about that, because the team who were getting involved in it had really sort of put themselves out and were quite excited about it. And so I remember, I've sort of worked out on a Friday that it wasn't going to work for a whole range of reasons. And I kind of had over the weekend to work out what to do. And so we turned it into an opportunity, and we actually created these, we repurposed it and turned them into like these community vans that went out to went and visited basically all small businesses and took them out of metro locations and into regional locations. And it actually created something really amazing. Out of that, Australia Post built a whole program to engage female-led businesses in rural communities. We built a program called Tall Poppies, which ran for a number of years. And, it was very, very exciting for the team, but it also really got us to think quite differently around how to engage businesses, as opposed to thinking they're going to come to us. We went to them. But my back had been up against a wall, because we'd pulled staff out of sites. We'd negotiated a whole thing with the union. Taking 50 vehicles off the road and repurposing them was like quite a big bet. And my learning out of that, or the way I kind of think about, any of these situations is like, well, how do I just take like whatever the asset or the idea is, and like, it's not necessarily the wrong thing. It's like, how do I best apply it? And like, even, building DoorDash as a business here, DoorDash in the US is like a huge business with lots and lots of amazing, products and business units and whatever. And I always say, like, we're not doing DoorDash to Australia. We're working out with all the tools and the products that we have, like, what is the best business we can build here? And it actually comes from that learning of saying, right, so over that weekend, I was like, well, what have I got? I've got like 200 staff, 50 vans. That means they can go anywhere. We've got facilities to print labels and do various things. Like, that's what I've got. What can I now use this for that's going to create some sort of value for the company? And that was probably my learning from that. There's plenty of them. I've had my back against the wall many times, but that's probably the most practical one.
Yeah. SHEREE?
Yeah, I laugh also thinking about all the challenges and failures and that I have experienced along the way, from splitting from a business partner to running a what's called a fuck up night, where entrepreneurs share their fuck up stories. And I'm pretty sure I am one of the only people to ever fuck up a fuck up night. And I honestly thought it had tarnished my reputation, because an article was published in one of the news outlets the next day, and the speakers were ready to sue, and it was a disaster. I have been a co-working operator without a co-working space, and having investors and a board going, SHEREE, what the hell's going on? I've had to completely pivot my business since COVID, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But I think one of the biggest challenges I went through that ended up being an incredible success story was I was trying to run basically a co-working space for women-led businesses without having funding. And so, I mean, how was I going to find a space, sign a lease for 10, 15 years, fit out the space? Like it was seriously impossible without capital. And I just kept kind of pounding the pavement and talking to people, and ended up speaking to the Kutners and the team at Central Equity. And this incredible opportunity came up where, they gave me a really good deal on a space in South Bank. They said, I signed a lease for it was 18 months at the time. And then it was month to month after that. And it was kind of like, good luck, make the most of it. We're gonna demolish this building as soon as we get permits, but in the meantime, you can, have it on a good deal. And I ended up, I took on massive risk doing that. It was a 1,500 square meter space, so huge, and ended up kind of DIYing all the fit out and finding cheap but nice furniture, and ended up being there for 4 years and had 200,000 people in and out of the space every year, a 200-person event space, 180 tenants, so 180 women-led businesses working out of the space. And yeah, a lot of people said to me, you're not going to find something, like no one's going to give you a space, a property on a cheap deal. And yeah, I was able to achieve that. And I think if you have enough curiosity and persistence, I think you need to be curious enough to keep learning and listening and observing and iterating. But then at the end of the day, it's the persistence. And if you have that, you can really turn any challenge into an opportunity.
While I've got you on that, SHEREE, you've listed like a whole bunch of
values.
Fuck up. So I'm wondering, when you're faced with those sorts of challenges, and obviously we talk about persistence and how you were able to turn it into something great, but in those moments where you're perhaps wrapped with a little bit of self-doubt or your confidence is rattled, where have you had to go internally to really get gritty and get through that?
There are a lot of tears. And then once I've kind of mourned the situation of what it is, I go into action mode. And I find that for me, I need to solve problems with people around me. And so in some of my kind of darkest, hardest moments of being very unsure with what to do with the business, I've brought people together, people who, smart minds, who understand what I'm doing, who understand the business, understand the space. And there was one time in particular where I was too, I didn't want to tell my investors, I didn't want to tell my board what was going on. And so I pulled together a group of people and just kind of laid it all out and said, I don't actually know if I should continue running this business. Here are the financials. Here's what's going on for me. I was pregnant at the time, and I had a lot of people saying to me, what are you doing? Why are you even building this business right now, this crazy time? Like, you need to really think about this. And so I just I need advice from others and mentorship. And so that's what I do. I call a lot of people and I just get a lot of advice. At the end of the day, it's up to me. But the other thing I do is, I guess because I run a business that's focused on entrepreneurial women and women in leadership, I share. I like to share stories, and it's a big value of mine to be very honest about the journey and about the challenges. And so, one of the biggest failures that I had when I pivoted the business, I ended up having an article published in Women's Agenda and Smart Company about the failure, because I just want my community and my members and the people out there to know. And so it ends up becoming great. Just a great story to share, and I can support my members by sharing my failures and my learnings. And
it's so normalizing. Yeah.
Just
before I jump across to SRULI, I just want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that we have a chat box. And so if there are any questions that come to mind, if we get a few minutes at the end, I'll be sure to put them to our guests. So, SRULI, in terms of challenges, adversity, bouncing back from failure, I mean, I think this is kind of the nitty-gritty that a lot of us want to know after we know about all the success stories. So do you have anything to share with us on that?
it's all been roses from day one, and there's been there's been no adversities in the last 20 years of business. I'll make one call out actually, which I think a lot of people have touched on, but no one's really focused on, which what we call internally at BUTN is reverse engineering. So whatever we do, we build products, we build tech, we build new financial products for like the business market. But what we do is, if you believe that it's the bee's knees, and if you believe that you can get it out to market, but you don't actually have a market to get it to, then you've wasted your time, you've wasted your money, you've wasted your effort, and you'll find you're back up against the wall. So what we've done at BUTN is actually taken it and put it on its head. And we went out and built BUTN. We actually went out to the community. We went out to our customers before we had a product, and we sold a product that we didn't have. But then we knew that once the product was finished being built, we could easily roll it out to an existing clientele and existing customers. And from day one, we already had runs on the board. So I think the takeaway I want to say is that a lot of people think I'm going to build the greatest thing in the world, and everyone's going to pick it up, and I'm going to become a multi-trillionaire, and I'll be on the front page of every paper. And then you spend a year of your life doing it, and you're ready to launch, and Facebook's taken the idea, or Google's just rolled it out 2 days before, and then suddenly you're trying to pivot. But if you had that market before and knew exactly what the customer wanted, you wouldn't have your back up against the wall a year later. And you wouldn't be in that position where you think, I've run out of money, or I've got to go back to the investors and tell them it hasn't worked, et cetera, et cetera. And again, being a public company, we've got a lot of investors and we've got a lot of shareholders, and, we're only as good as our last lend, and our whole business, our stock in trade, our inventory is money out, money in, money out, money in. And everything that we've done from day one is like, if I put this money out the door, who's going to take it? What's the risk behind it? And when am I going to get it back? And if you can't answer those three questions, and it's with if you have inventory or you run a service business, no matter what you do, what we found is if you can't answer those three questions at day one, don't do it. Because you're right, at that point, you'll have your back up against the wall, you'll have your challenges, et cetera, and then it'll be too late.
Just changing track a little bit, in this year, 2021, we're having a conversation about millennial disruptors. I'd like to know from each of you what you perceive as some of the biggest disruptive forces in business currently. So aside from COVID, in terms of innovation, technology, what are your observations, Rebecca?
So obviously, aside from COVID, I think sustainability is a really key kind of focus. So, thinking through, I guess that kind of comes from thinking about, what do consumers ultimately want the businesses or organizations that they interact with to be? And I think that it's partly generational. I think it's partly it's partly just the moment in time that we're in, and I think probably the thinking that a lot of the world has done. I think sustainability will continue to be a really big disruptive and a disruptive force, but also a really big opportunity. And so I think a lot about that, and that's sustainability in terms of environmental sustainability, but also I kind of see that blending into the way we work. So how sustainable are companies in terms of people being able to thrive within them? How can we make sure that partners and businesses that you work with thrive? So I kind of think of sustainability a bit more broadly than just probably the environmental piece, which we focus on a lot. So that's probably like a kind of key disruptive force that I think a lot about, aside from, the obvious disruption that is upon us. And I think the other piece is around like future of work. So, what kind of careers are people going to want to have? How do you attract the right people into businesses? What should work actually look like? And that's obviously, the physical piece in terms of right now, I guess everyone's kind of thinking about the way people are going to want to, interact in the workforce, but also, as new generations come through, like what are the careers they're going to want to have? How are they going to be, motivated? how do they want to show up to work? I think that's another really disruptive force, because we're only as good as the teams that we can build. And, you know, it's something if I've observed it working in different organizations, it's like very, very different now, talking to people coming through, you know, university or not university, you know, coming through to what it was, you know, even only 5 years ago. So that would be the other kind of key disruptor is people.
And I'd imagine even more so in the last year and a half, right? In terms of what people want or what people's value, has there been a value shift that you've observed because of COVID and working from home and a different kind of balance in people's life or lack thereof?
Yeah, I think what I found really interesting, I mean, yes, definitely over the last year, but I actually think we've all just been thrust into, like, it's not necessarily by choice, the balance or lack of balance or the way we're working or where we're working. Like, not very many people are necessarily choosing that, or some people probably like it or dislike it more. But I think what it's causing is like more kind of like reflection and more open conversations about how people want to work. I'm working a lot with my team around, you know, what's it going to be like when we go back to work? And I'm like, well, what's when we go back to the office? I'm like, well, what even is that? Like, maybe we're already back in Sydney, or maybe, you know, like, what do you mean when we go back? And so starting to talk to people about, well, you know, what have we learned about ourselves over the last year that we therefore know of ourselves more, what we need, and how do we make that true for people? And I think one of the best things that's come out of this this period of disruption in the way we work across teams is actually less of the conversations around the optimal way to work or how to create balance or how to create the right workspaces is now gender-based than what I used to observe. So I used to have a lot of conversations with women about getting the right work-life balance, or do they want to work part-time or work some days from home, and now actually that's just a general conversation in the workforce. And what is becoming really apparent is different people prefer different things. I mean, it's very obvious, but like different people prefer different things, and it's actually got very little to do with their gender and much more to do with their work style, their personality, what else is going on in their life. I think it's wonderful that so many more men in the workforce are talking about how they can retain the flexibility to be able to be at home when their families are at home, or to do things kind of differently. So I actually think that's an amazing equalizer that has happened in those conversations, which will be better for all people in the workforce. And that's kind of one of my observations.
SHEREE, I'll throw to you, and if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about how you've had to navigate COVID and just exactly what that's meant for your business.
Yes. So I, as I mentioned before, became a co-working operator without a co-working space. We had 3 months and we had to vacate the property. And so, you know, I had investment and I had, as I said, a board, and everyone was kind of going, what the hell's going on? And I was struggling because I think in the end, I hadn't actually raised enough capital, and rentals in Melbourne just kept going up. And I was trying to create this incredible you know, the home for women-led businesses and women, you know, and for it to be this incredible space. And so I was really struggling to find something. And so, yeah, so I, sorry, I forgot where I was at. So I guess, I reached a point where this was December 2019, I'd finally secured a site. It was the Myob building in Cremorne. I was about to sign a lease. I was also about to become a mum, and then COVID hit, and it just put everything to a halt. And I kind of stopped. I, you know, was thrown into motherhood. I thought I'd have plenty of time. There's a pandemic. But investors were kind of saying, well, hey, you've got our money. Sure, we're in the middle of a crisis right now, but you need to make a decision. You know, you're a leader, you're running a business, you've got our money, make a call. And I couldn't invest their money in this climate. And so I walked away from the deal. Luckily, I hadn't signed a lease, just a heads of agreement. I return the capital to my investors. And I'm not sure there's many, if any, startups who could really talk about having done that, and shared that story. And I guess as hard as that was, I've created a great opportunity from it. It's meant that I feel like I started the business all over again, going from running a co-working business for 6 years and having a plan to build a co-working empire with spaces across Australia for women, to completely pivoting and with a bit of grants and support, turning it into a digital membership. And then in a year, onboarding nearly 1,000 members. So I've worked hard to build up the community, but I've, had a foundation to work from. And for me, it's exciting. Like, I was about to sign 15-year leases on bricks and mortar space. And I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't want to be stuck to bricks and mortar, and it's not the model that I want to focus on. I'm very excited by technology and online and scale. And so now I just partner with co-working operators around Australia. So I don't need to set up the spaces. I can just use them as partners, and our members can work out of their spaces. I think, and in terms of what I'm seeing in our community, most of our members who are running their own businesses are quite impact driven in what they're doing. And, Rebecca's talked about sustainability. I think so much of what I'm seeing these business owners driven by is, wanting to drive change, positive change. And so, and I'm really excited by things like the telehealth space and e-commerce and meal delivery and women's health. I think there's just a lot of disruption going on there. Verve Super is an incredible business that's come out of One Roof, which is a super ethical super fund run by women for women. And so a lot of B Corp. And I think the balance of profit and impact is interesting at a time when we really need to be thinking about these things. I'm also really interested in seeing a lot more female investors coming out. And, we see Carol Schwartz doing a lot of great investing, but we're also seeing Kate Morris from Adore Beauty and Mel Perkins from Canva and Cyan from Envato. And I think that is also really interesting because it impacts, the kinds of products and services that we see.
Mm-hmm. SRULI, are you also seeing this kind of shift in terms of more ethical, sustainable sort of a mindset in your space in fintech as well, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, not so much actually, due to the fact that we survive in a space where we're needed and wanted, and from a sustainability point of view, I mean, we have the ethos, obviously, in BUTN. We do a lot of sustainability practices, internal, both external as well. But the environment that we play in, especially off the back of COVID now, is a necessity. And what we're seeing, and I'll call out also what SHEREE mentioned around the partnership route. This is essential, and this is what personally what BUTN's based on. Everything we do is a partnership. We're not a standalone business, and every product that we put in market is only a partnership model. And I think that particular call out is so important now in COVID, because everyone's looking for leverage and everyone's looking to get ahead. And the only way you can leverage and the only way you can get ahead, especially in today's environment, is to partner, because someone's got something that someone else doesn't have, and someone's got something that they don't have. And suddenly you find everyone needs a little bit of what everyone else has. And then suddenly you get together and you say, oh, these are the best of both worlds. Let's go forward. And exactly, I think, as SHEREE said, that, she had this business, but she didn't want to have the space. And with us, we have the product, but we want to get the distribution and origination. And we're not going to sit there and put billboards and pictures on trams to try and get distribution. We go the partnership model. And I think it's the same with Rebecca as well. And Rebecca, I might speak for you here, but your whole business is based on partnerships as well. I mean, if you didn't have partnerships, you wouldn't have a business. So I think it's an interesting call out off the back of COVID. And I think COVID's actually just solidified that position and brought it more to the front, and saying that if you have a position and you have a business and you're trying to sort of break through and really take it to the next level, the only way to get to the next level is through partnerships, whether it's strategic, whether it's friendly, whether it's, pay for the partnership, etc. But it's that partnership that will put you in good stead to take it to the next level. And we can see that from all the others on the panel tonight.
Mm-hmm. I want to change track again. We've probably got time for one more question before I throw to some of the Q&As in the chat. Balance and boundaries. Is balance achievable? Is it an elusive concept? And how do you avoid burnout? What sort of things do you do to try and keep yourself in check, Rebecca?
Yeah, so I think there's a few kind of questions in there. So I think for me, balance it's actually different for everybody. So I think this idea around like work-life balance and like clear boundaries is something that you need to be very reflective yourself of what it is that you need. And it does kind of play into the way I think about burnout, which is more around, I think like I have a very like a high capacity and a high energy. Like I love working, but I love being involved in lots of things, right? And like I'm lucky, I guess I've never really felt burnt out, but there are days that I feel burnt out, or weeks that I get to the end of the week and I'm like a total wreck. And for me, it's more around like how do I spend more time doing the things that give me energy and less time doing the things that drain me of energy, knowing that those things that drain me of energy are the energy givers to somebody else, right? And so having the people around you, and that's, to be honest, like in your personal life, in your work life, just in your life, people around you who balance that. And so, at home, making sure the jobs are split around, like, you only do a couple of the things that like you really, really hate. Got to do more of them in COVID because there's a lot less help, but like a few of the things that you really, really hate and lots of the things that you love. So like, I love cooking. It's not every so often it's a bit of a chore, but like, I actually enjoy it. It gives me energy. So I'm not going to complain about it. And it's a nice way to like, give to my family without it being a drain. But there's plenty of other things that I don't like doing that I like either outsource or find someone in the family that might get energy from that. Same thing at work, right? So like, what are the things that give me energy? And like, how do I spend more time doing those? And how do I tick the things off that don't give me energy, either like in one block at a certain time or, however it works for you. And then I think setting boundaries is really important, especially if you are somebody who gets a lot of energy from working, right? Because I can happily like think about my work all the time, talk about my work all the time, engage my team all the time about stuff, like bore people with all my ideas. But knowing that either that might be burning someone else out or, without those boundaries, I'm going to let something else in my life down and probably have a little bit of regret around that. So the way I kind of think about balance is more around like overall, how are things going? Like if I was to rate myself, this week or this month on like my family, my friends, my work, my physical health, my mental health, like how are they all going out of 10? And I used to actually write this down in a book, like literally almost like on a kind of fortnightly basis. And you know what, if it's out of whack for 1 or 2 fortnights and one thing's winning, like so be it. But if it's constantly out of whack, then I know that I actually need to like actively do something about that. So I do find having that accountability to yourself and actually like writing it down so you can reflect back. And if you're feeling really tired, to go, well, actually, it's just like, it was okay like 2 weeks ago. So this is just a period I'm going through in this, or actually I've been really neglectful of my, I don't know, haven't been to the gym for like 2 months, or haven't been happy with, with the way I'm treating my friends for a month, then I know I need to do something about it. But I think holding yourself accountable and like, for me, physically, like writing it down so that I look back and reflect on it rather than just reacting to whatever's happening in the moment is the most helpful.
Yeah. SHEREE, do you have anything to add to that?
I have been living in North New South Wales, so, Northern Rivers, like near Byron Bay, as a result of the pandemic. And obviously, it's a different pace and way of life, completely. And, being out of a city and being in this kind of region. And so it's really brought up a lot of questions for me and challenged my idea of, busyness. And I guess the pandemic generally has probably led a lot of us to think about this, but I'm very ambitious. When I was listening to Rebecca talk, I was laughing, thinking I really resonate. I can obsess over work, and I love what I do, and I can work all the time. And I like being busy, but it's challenged my thinking of that and the conditioning that I've got around that. I have very hardworking parents, very hardworking grandparents. It's like literally just the reality that I've been in. And so I've really been trying to, challenge myself and question, does that hustle culture really serve me? And if I take days off work, take days off from running the business, will it still be there the next day? Can actually a lot of creativity and success come from slower times, from more of that self-care? It's not easy for me, but it's definitely something that, I guess I'm around nature more. I'm doing more walks. I'm doing, swimming all the time. And so being in nature and being in a slower environment where I don't think people around here really glorify hustle. It's just interesting to try to bring that into my life. And so there's more journaling and, meditation practice and things like that. But it's hard for me. It's not my natural way. And it's very easy for me to spend most nights going to my laptop. And so I really have to, I'm just really sitting with it. And I think I have been reading a lot of books about this kind of feminine style of leadership and this kind of new way of leading. So it's more around cycles and self-care and rather than that hustle culture. So I am really trying to implement that and just challenging myself on it. Mm. The other thing I want to add is, sorry, Rebecca, the last thing I just want to add is I definitely, I love learning and putting myself out there. And so in between lockdowns, I went to a leadership course. My cousin, Anna Rubinstein, runs these incredible programs up in Mullumbimby. And so, doing things like that as well, is doing stuff for me. It's not easy. I was very challenged and had to sit in circles around a fire and share stories. And, it's an uncomfortable thing to do, but it's incredible. It's incredible to create space to do that internal work and to share in groups with people you've never met before and be totally uncomfortable, sleeping in a tent by myself and just totally in an uncomfortable environment. So I think things like that are really beneficial for me too.
Yeah. And lastly, SRULI?
I think I'll summarize it. I think a couple of years ago, someone once said to me, it's great to be busy as long as it's productive. And I think a lot of people are, and we've especially seen it now with COVID, that people, I'm so busy, I've got no time to do anything, I'm so busy. And so what have you been doing? I'm on the last episode of Series 8 or something. I was like, what? Series 8? Like, Succession has just come out and, I'm waiting for Series 3. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're busy. I get it. So for what we're seeing internally, and I'll say another thing as well, my darling wife, who's on the call today as well, so shout out to you. She was very excited, sort of, so circa 1 or 2 months before our IPO. She's like, I'm so excited you're finally going to get that work-life balance that we've been screaming of for the last sort of 2 years, and especially the last year leading up, where we're doing sort of 17-hour days trying to get everything signed off. And then the IPO hit, and she hasn't seen me, I don't think, for the last 2 months. So the balance of reality versus the want versus need versus have, I think is quite a divider. So I go back again to the first comment I said, that if you're busy and it's being productive, it's very different to being busy just for the sake of being busy. And I think that will define your work-life balance.
Amazing. We have run out of time, but we do have a few questions. So I'm just going to fire off 3, if that's okay. Brian, Moishi, is that okay? Okay. So we're going to do quick wildfire questions here. So I'll start with Rebecca. So a question from Hannah. Besides your job, what are your other passions in life?
Lots of them. I love travel. I can't wait till I can get on a plane and travel and be somewhere else. That's probably when I most kind of switch off from the busy and sort of refresh. So that's something I'm very, very passionate about. You know, I love being involved in different causes. I'm looking forward to, you know, when things open up and I can maybe explore some other things to get involved in from that way as well. But, you know, I would say, you know, travel, new cultures, new people, new foods, that sort of thing.
Travel. SHEREE, I'll jump across to you. Any regrets, anything you would have done differently?
Look, not really. I guess if I had to say something, it would be I just said yes to everything when I started my business and did that for a long time. And I think a lot of the failures came from not taking the time to assess whether it was a distraction or an opportunity. And in hindsight, it was pretty clear that some of those things that I took on weren't opportunities. So yeah, just taking a bit more time to think out big decisions in the business, because yeah, I was a yes person for a long time to everything.
Mm-hmm. I've got another question here, SHEREE, and I'll just get you maybe to address it in the chat afterwards. But Shayna wants to know how you join a fuck up group, so I'll leave that one to you. SRULI, last one, final question. Actually, I'm going to pick one that I've got here. One piece of advice you could give yourself now if you were speaking to yourself at the beginning of your business journey.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of years, especially in the last year. And I think I would have been listed a couple of years ago if I would have done this, to tell you the truth, as opposed to sort of now. And that's, as my co-founder always says, Walter, stick to the knitting. So it's sort of leading on from what SHEREE said, but, you know, we took on so much in the beginning, and myself personally, you know, I used to be in the Philippines once a month for Chicot.com, which it's the car sales of the Philippines. And I thought I was invincible. I can do it all. You know, it's all going to sort of fall into place. But, you know, if I would have just done one thing and just literally 17 hours a day on one thing, as opposed to sort of 17 hours a day on 3 or 4 different things, I think I would have, you know, accelerated greatly. So my one piece of advice, and if anyone ever asks me this, I always tell them the same thing: do one thing and do it well, and that's it.
I feel like that's a really good point for us to close this evening. So thank you, Rebecca, SHEREE, SRULI, for being so open about your journeys and sharing with all of us. And I'll hand over to Yossi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rebecca, SHEREE, and SRULI for sharing with us tonight your stories, your reflections, and advice. It's inspirational and informative. Before we go tonight, I want to let everyone know about a couple of things that are happening at YJP Melbourne, so you can connect with us over the next week or two. Moishi is running a course about the future. Rebecca spoke tonight about sustainability and how today we have to be thinking about the responsibility we have to tomorrow's world. Moishi is running a course. The next class is on October 13th, this Wednesday, about the future according to Judaism from a spiritual perspective. You can log in on daminyan.com/live. And next week, in the Shabbat after this coming Shabbat, is the Shabbat Project. The Shabbat Project is a global initiative to raise awareness about Shabbat experience and practice and connecting people around it. Though this year we're not going to be getting together in person to celebrate it, we will be having a virtual event on Thursday, October 21st, in a week and a half. We'll be having a Taste of Shabbat event. People from our community will be presenting different foods that they create for Shabbat. Join us then on Thursday, October 21st. Looking forward to staying connected, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rebecca, awesome job. Rebecca, Sheree, SRULI, awesome job. Thank you. Yossi, incredible
Thanks,
job.
Trevor.
Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
everyone.
for having me.
Of course. Nice meeting you guys, albeit virtual.
Hopefully in person next time.
Exactly. Exactly
Yes.
right. Gary,
Awesome.
welcome. Hello.